That was the Stokes. Let's see.
Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the 2025 State Dinner. Welcome, Your Serene Highness, and all of our honorees and all of our members. Thank you for joining us this evening. I have one bit of news. It was announced this afternoon that ABC is going to bring back the Jimmy Kimmel Show starting tomorrow. So, unfortunately, he can't be here tonight, and you're stuck with me. I'm Michael McKee, the International Economics and Policy Correspondent for Bloomberg News, and I am honored to be here for the State Dinner and be your MC for the evening. Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of attending many of the events and forces that shape our global economy, from policy and diplomacy to leadership and business. It is a true honor to join the Foreign Policy Association this evening, as we recognize individuals whose work embodies these values at the very highest level. And I might add, at a time when this work has never been more important. Your Serene Highness, our distinguished honorees and guests and members of the diplomatic, business, and academic communities, please feel welcome this evening because you are among friends. It is now my pleasure to invite Henry Fernandez, the chairman of the Foreign Policy Association's board and chairman and chief executive officer of MSCI Incorporated, to the podium to introduce our first honoree, His Serene Highness Prince Albert II of Monaco.
Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. As many of you know, this may be the single busiest week of the year in New York City. So we're all grateful that you took the time and braved the traffic to join us. Thank you also for all the support that you gave to the work done by my colleagues at the Foreign Policy Association. It has been my tremendous privilege to serve as chairman of the board of the FPA since 2019. We have a truly impressive list of honorees tonight, most of whom I hope you met the reception, so we would like to congratulate them for being honored for tremendous achievements in their line of work. Before introducing our first distinguished honoree, I would like to take a few minutes for a quick word about the unique role and the enormous value of the FPA during this current historic moment. The tragic and horrifying events that took place in Utah earlier this month reminded us that we never, ever should take free speech, open debate, and civil discourse for granted. While these have long been the bedrock values of liberal democracies, we must all work every single day to defend, protect, and sustain them. Indeed, even amid the polarization and turmoil of American politics of 2025, these values are non-negotiable. Which brings me back to the role of the FPA. Over the past century, no single organization has done more to foster vibrant, thoughtful, respectful discussions of U.S. foreign policy than the FPA. Our discussions have included presidents, secretaries of state, and other high-level dignitaries, but they have also included untold numbers of ordinary Americans who wanted to lend their voice to the conversation. Given the partisanship, the distrust, and the misinformation that plagues our society today, not to mention the volatile, uncertain, and dangerous state of global affairs, I would argue that the FPA's mission has never been more important than it is today. The world's challenges and opportunities will be on full display this week as leaders and dignitaries from every corner of the planet gather here in our beloved city for the United Nations General Assembly, and for many of us, Climate Week. One of those leaders and dignitaries is with us today, and is our first honoree, His Serene Highness Prince Albert II of Monaco. There are many ways I could begin this introduction, because His Serene Highness has lived a remarkable life while dedicating himself to a wide range of civic, educational, and philanthropic endeavors. But I will start by noting that he is, to the best of my knowledge, the only FPA medal recipient ever to compete in the bobsled competition at 5 consecutive Winter Olympics. See? He was there in 88, 92, 94, 98, and he couldn't have enough and came back in 2002. Moreover, his wife, Her Serene Highness Princess Charlene, is also a former Olympic athlete who competed for South Africa in swimming at the 2000 Summer Games in Sydney. What an athletic family. In addition to all of that, His Serene Highness is again, to the best of my knowledge, the only FPA recipient ever to have visited both the North and the South Pole. I must confess, I have visited about 100 countries in the world, but have never been to the North or the South Pole, so I'm being put to shame here. And I promise at least I'm going to make one of them in the near future. Each of his polar expeditions drew attention to the effects of global climate change, while also paying tribute to his great-great-grandfather, Prince Albert I, who was a pioneer in polar explorations. His trip to the South Pole in 2009 led to the launch of the Venturi Antarctica, the first electric vehicle designed specifically for polar conditions. Both trips reflected his broader commitment to environmental protection. In 2007, for example, he helped launch the Monaco Explorations Initiative to promote ocean conservation and scientific research around the world. Through its efforts in places like Macaronesia, Colombia, Martinique, Australia, and the Indian Ocean, this initiative has greatly advanced our understanding of ocean health and the impacts of rising global temperatures. As someone like myself in my company at MSCI who shares the passion for climate issues, I would like to commend His Serene Highness for everything he has done to deepen our knowledge of climate change and to accelerate potential solutions. We all need badly that leadership in the world today more than ever. Born in 1958, a couple months before I was born. Prince Rainier, to Prince Rainier III and Princess Grace. He officially began his reign as prince in 2005 and recently marked the 20th anniversary of his enthronement. Congratulations again on 20 years of fantastic leadership and endeavors around the world. A 1981 graduate of Amherst College in Massachusetts, His Serene Highness trained with the French Navy after leaving school, and to this day, he remains a reserve lieutenant commander. Let us hope he's not calling to duty anytime soon. Among his many awards and accolades, he has received the Teddy Roosevelt Medal from the International Conservation Caucus Foundation in Washington, D.C., in recognition of his environmental work. My daughter, who is studying environmental engineering at Stanford, will be extremely proud of me presenting the medal to His Highness and understand the contributions he has made. We are thrilled to have him with us tonight, and I am honored and privileged to present him with the FPA medal. Please join me in congratulating His Serene Highness, Prince Albert II of Monaco, a severe environmentalist.
And then we'll get a picture. They can go. So much. Thank you.
Chairman Henry Fernandez, President and CEO Noel Latif, members of the Board of Trustees, Your Excellencies, fellow awardees, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and family. I'm deeply honored to stand before you this evening at the storied Harvard Club to accept this prestigious medal, this Medal of Honor from the Foreign Policy Association. Chairman Fernandez, receiving this medal from the hands of a true citizen of the world. I traveled to a lot of countries. I also have had the privilege to travel to many countries. And you who embrace the many different aspects of global affairs, this is particularly meaningful. So thank you so much for your presentation, and fellow 1958 native. President Latif, we can definitely acknowledge, and paraphrasing your own words, that your new ideas took shape and soared. Thank you so much. Your constant pursuit of excellence without government support is admirable, and is what makes the Foreign Policy Association so unique. First, I want to acknowledge the Foreign Policy Association as a true beacon of international affairs education. For over a century, your organization has served as a catalyst for developing awareness for emerging topics, has facilitated understanding of global issues, and has helped to inform the public opinion here in the U.S. and the U.S.'s role in the world. What a great achievement to forge generations of brilliant minds and contribute to enlightening citizens. For decades, critical thinking programs like Great Decisions have sparked bipartisan debates about world affairs that have contributed to policy and decision makers at all levels of the United States government. With the lecture series Off the Record, founded by Women for Women, in 1938, FPA was well ahead of the international community. It gave women a greater voice when it took the United Nations a few blocks away decades to do so. This year, we are commemorating the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform of Action for Women, and 25 years have passed since the UN Security Council adopted a groundbreaking resolution on women, peace, and security. And we had a session today at the United Nations to mark that anniversary. Knowledge, education, and openness to cultural diversity are indispensable tools for today's world citizens. Leading the second smallest state in the world comes with specific challenges and the need to adapt to a rapidly changing world, and that is a perpetual endeavor. Sir Francis Bacon is known for the expression, knowledge is power. However, it was Thomas Jefferson, I believe, who took this value further by adding that knowledge is crucial for safety and happiness. In these uncertain times, when countries and people around the globe face daily polarization, conflict, environmental stress, rapidly evolving technology, and disinformation, I would be remiss if I did not express my concern. However, there are reasons to remain positive. As a coastal nation, Monaco's history, economic development, and regional cooperation are deeply linked to the sea. My ancestor, my great-great-grandfather, Prince Albert I, through many expeditions and first-hand research, dedicated his life to advancing scientific knowledge, creating the Monaco Oceanographic Institute in 1906 and the Oceanographic Museum in Monaco in 1910. The United States, as the greatest maritime power, was deeply involved in the drafting of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. And I hope for the stability of our world that it will keep not only that predominance, but also keep working for the common good. In a few months, the Treaty on the High Seas should enter into force now that the adequate number of countries have signed in, bringing new hopes for a better conservation and exploitation of these vast areas that are still quite unknown to most of us. Let's consider the immensity of the global ocean as the center of our geopolitical challenges. Without it, we would not be able to breathe, and without its fisheries, most of the world population would be deprived of protein. The threats of climate change, pollution, and loss of biodiversity are absolutely staggering. The recent historic advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice that all nations have a legal duty under international law to protect the climate system and to prevent further greenhouse gas emissions strengthens the legal corpus on adapting and mitigating the effects of climate change. As we have consistently seen, climate events have only gotten worse over the last 2 decades. We cannot forget, of course, tragedies like Hurricane Katrina and the wildfires that were more in more recent times. And we know that these events and these situations will not reverse, but become more and more destructive in the future. My foundation was established a few months after my expeditions, my first expedition to the Arctic region, and the Dogsled expedition that I led to the geographic North Pole in 2006. And visited places Prince Albert I had documented a century before. I believe the poles, while both the North and South Pole are very different, but are absolutely unique and fragile ecosystems, and that should not stay beyond national appropriation. The work of my foundation is centered on biodiversity, climate, and water resources. It calls for scientific research, financing, and partnerships. On the scientific research front, the foundation, like the Oceanographic Institute and the Oceanographic Museum, bring together scientific, political, economic, educational, and civil society actors to advance knowledge on the ocean. That mission is embedded in the fact that our history and our future are intimately linked. It is firmly believed that through the union of all sciences, we can inspire new universal solidarity and protect our common heritage. Additionally, the Monaco Scientific Center plays a vital role shedding light on dangerous issues that are affecting human and planetary health. Just last month, a journal article was published entitled "The Lancet Countdown on Health and Plastics," in collaboration with Boston University, the Australian Foundation in Minderoo, and Germany's Heidelberg University. Plastics cause a disease, and the health-related economic losses are absolutely enormous. Therefore, I believe it is essential to document the impact of plastics on human health so that public policies can be adopted and concrete actions can be implemented, even if a treaty on the full life cycle of plastics may sadly, and actually quite shockingly, never come to fruition. With the scientific knowledge, critical decisions can be made for the well-being of all of us humans and for the planet. This brings me to the interlinked pillar, financing. On the sidelines of the third UN conference to support the implementation of SDG 14, UNOC 3, last June, the Principality of Monaco hosted the Blue Economy and Finance Forum, or BEFF. The forum, co-organized with the Oceanographic Institute and my foundation, stands as a landmark initiative to support a sustainable ocean economy. Bringing together participants from nearly 100 countries, the BEFF laid the foundation for a regenerative blue economy, one that reconciles nature, or ecological integrity, if you want, with economic prosperity. The ambition was clear: to catalyze new concrete financial commitments and strategic public-private partnerships that place the ocean at the heart of the global economic transformation in some key sectors. These included notably maritime shipping decarbonation within the International Maritime Organization, port and coastal infrastructure adaptation, the promotion of marine renewable energy, and different innovations. Coalitions were launched demonstrating that the private sector is ready to engage together with the public sector, underscoring that ocean-related opportunities can be an attractive source of investment. In Monaco, the foundation and the financial firm Monaco Asset Management launched the ReOcean Fund to catalyze ocean innovation to support the transition to a net zero, regenerative, and more equitable economic project. Nature Metrics, self-named the global nature intelligence provider, is the first company to enter the ReOcean Fund investment portfolio, with the aim to setting a new benchmark for integrating the health of the oceans into business decisions. The momentum that I witness will hopefully lead to greater progress for our oceans and bring nations and maritime actors closer together. This brings me to the third pillar, which is partnerships. Partnerships are absolutely vital to achieve common goals for small states like Monaco, but also for larger states. In each of the examples that I cited on research and financing, not one initiative could be achieved alone. As part of the international community, Monaco takes its commitments very seriously and actively participates at the United Nations and through other global organizations such as UNESCO, FAO, WMO, IMO, UNEP, but to name a few. At all levels, regional, global innovation and impact can be concretely amplified when working with a broad alignment of different stakeholders, and on critical issues, a coalition of like-minded must be strengthened. It is therefore my wish and my hope that FPA will continue to pursue its work in advancing education as it has very successfully done for over a century. The Great Decisions Teacher Training Institute, in offering eye-opening programs for high school students, offers an incentive to learn about world relations. Technology is, as we all know, shrinking our world and the perception of it, but the sooner students discover geopolitics, the better it is. The great decisions on campus for undergraduate and graduate students prepare tomorrow's leaders. Their education and readiness to engage on the global stage will contribute to defining our future. For our sake, and for the sake of our world, let's hope that the foundation which inspired the creation of FPA will prevail. So in closing, I'd like to recognize the leadership quality and respective contributions to society of my fellow honorees. I'm delighted to have the Foreign Policy Association Medal of Honor in common with you, and the long list of very distinguished awardees who came before us. But let us all harness our collective commitment to history and to education to carry on the best form of cooperation and dialogue that we can in the future. In furtherance of the mission of the Foreign Policy Association, the cross-section of our work, I'm certain that we can we can each do our part and lead with conviction and decency for the planet and its inhabitants, and we can amplify our common successes. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you very much, Your Serene Highness, for those inspiring words and for the work that you do. We're now going to take a break for dinner. We will be back in a bit with our other honorees. Have a good evening, and we'll see you soon. Good evening again. I'm sorry to interrupt dessert, but time flies when you're having fun, and time has flown, and we want to get back to our program because we have some distinguished honorees who we want to get to, and we're all here to celebrate their achievements instead of eating key lime pie, but go ahead and eat the pie. I'm happy to resume the program now by introducing Matthew J. Harrington. He's the Global President and COO of Edelman, to introduce our second honoree tonight, Kirsty Graham, Chief Executive Officer of Edelman U.S.
Good evening. It's a true privilege to introduce tonight's next recipient of the Foreign Policy Association Medal, Kirsty Graham is a worthy selection as she embodies responsible internationalism and has worked tirelessly throughout her career to deepen public understanding of global affairs. From her early service in government and diplomacy on behalf of New Zealand, her native country, to her work at the United Nations, and now in her leadership at Edelman, she has been a driving force in advancing dialogue and trust across borders. She has shown that the most complex challenges, from public health to economic stability to international cooperation, demand clarity, courage, and connection. She carried that same global outlook into her decade at Pfizer, where she led biopharma corporate affairs and policy. Whether leading Edelman's public affairs practice or now as CEO of Edelman US, Kirsty has guided leaders, institutions, and communities through times of uncertainty. She has championed transparency and inclusivity, ensuring that global decision-making reflects the needs of the people as much as the priorities of the institutions. At every step, she has brought integrity and vision to the task of building understanding in an increasingly interconnected world. Tonight, on behalf of my Edelman colleagues, I want to be the first to congratulate Kirsty on being added to the distinguished list of those previously recognized, including tonight's honorees, and thank her for being a leader whose work continues to inspire the values this medal represents. Please join me in congratulating Kirsty Graham.
Well, Your Serene Highness, members of the Foreign Policy Association, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to be here tonight, and thank you, Matt, for that lovely introduction. Standing here tonight, I feel an enormous sense of gratitude. I feel gratitude to the Foreign Policy Association for this extraordinary honour. I feel gratitude for being in the company of so many distinguished leaders and friends, and gratitude for the journey that has brought me here. To receive the FPA medal, an award given to those who strive to strengthen dialogue and global understanding across borders, is both humbling and profoundly personal. These are issues I care deeply about, and they have never been more important than they are today. This mission has been woven into my life since childhood. As I reflect on my feelings tonight, I'm reminded that the seeds of respect, communication, and leadership were planted early for me. Growing up in a small rural township in New Zealand, my world was cosy but contained. My school had just 65 students. Then at the age of 8, my family moved to Singapore. Overnight, my brother and I became the only foreigners in a local school of more than 2,000 students. It was a shock to the system, and the greatest gift my parents could have given us. From living in Asia to traveling through Europe, Russia, and the Middle East, I learned at a young age that to understand the world, you have to step into it. You have to listen, not just hear. You have to seek connection, not comfort. And those experiences didn't just shape my education, they shaped my character, and they have shaped my career. They also gave me perspective. When you grow up in an island at the bottom of the world, you quickly learn how dependent you are on others, how deeply interconnected this world truly is, and how important it is to look beyond yourself, beyond your own country, beyond your own politics, and beyond your own echo chamber. Today, I worry that we live in a world where we've lost that nuance. We've gotten stuck in a binary mindset, good or bad, us or them. Edelman's 2025 Trust Barometer research confirmed this, people are less likely than ever to live, to work, or to help people who see the world differently. Most people see the world in terms of haves and have-nots, believing that if someone else is benefiting, it must be at their own expense. This zero-sum mindset is dangerous. It chips away at our social contract and it endangers democracy. In my role today, advising companies and CEOs on the sheer number and complexity of issues they face, economic volatility, extraordinary political polarization, workforce challenges, misinformation, chronic loneliness, a changed information ecosystem, climate change, and the rapid evolution of technology, it's clear that these are all borderless problems. They cannot be solved in isolation. They can't be solved through a single national lens, and they can't be solved by any one institution, be it business or government. And that is why leadership matters so much. True leadership today requires more than ambition. It requires integrity, doing what you say you will do. It requires respect, listening deeply, even when you disagree. And it requires communication that is honest, empathetic, and human. Because at the heart of leadership lies something very simple but profound: our ability to connect. We must double down on what makes us who we are. It's not just what we say, but how and where we say it, and ultimately how we choose to act. It's about remembering that every single one of us has a responsibility to lean into the commonalities we share, not the divisions that separate us. Throughout my own journey, from student politics to the Foreign Service to the corporate world, and now in agency leadership, I've learned that nothing replaces human experience. Real, lived, in-person experience. Humans don't just crave social interaction, we need it. And because we're here during one of my favorite weeks, Angua, right in the shadows of the United Nations, I'm reminded of my time there, 6 years at the United Nations. I know firsthand that complex negotiations never succeed without a deep respect for different cultures and different belief systems. Dialogue only works when it's rooted in understanding. The last 5 years have tested us all globally on an unparalleled level. We've endured volatile geopolitics, systemic racism, a global pandemic, widening inequality, and a wave of disinformation. And yet, I remain an optimist. I will never bet against the basic goodness of people. We must hold on to our optimism. We must choose to lead with resilience, with courage, with decency, and with an open mind. Diplomacy, like leadership, succeeds not because someone speaks the loudest, but because someone listens the hardest. We must recognize the moment we are in our world. And while there is much division surrounding us, we have to advocate for communication that builds rather than breaks, for relationships forged not through screens, but through presence, to touch, to see, to feel, and hear in person. It will always be valid to debate the role of government, the role of the market, and our social values and norms. But let us not lose our capacity for rational discussion, and most importantly, for walking in someone else's shoes. Though we may disagree, we should not vilify those who think differently. And this is what the Foreign Policy Association has always stood for: the power of informed dialogue. For more than a century, the Foreign Policy Association has reminded us that understanding begins with curiosity, with listening, with learning, and with connecting. And that mission, as many have said this evening, has never been more urgent than today. Maya Angelou once said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but nobody will forget how you made them feel." My own conclusion, therefore, is that in this age of artificial intelligence, where machines are becoming better at mimicking us, we must be better at being human. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Graham, for those very inspiring remarks. I think we were all impressed. I'm pleased now to invite Russell J. Carson, who's Chair Emeritus of the Rockefeller University Board of Trustees and Chairman of the Carson Family Charitable Trust, to the stage to introduce our third honoree, Dr. Richard P. Lipton, the President of the Rockefeller University.
Good evening. I had the honor of chairing the Rockefeller University Board for 13 years, and also the honor of chairing the search committee that selected Richard Lipton as our 11th president in 2016. Most of you have never heard of Rockefeller University, so I'd like to just tell you a little bit about it. The university was created in 1901 by John D. Rockefeller, and with the concept of bringing together the best and the brightest medical scientists across the world to solve mankind's greatest health problems. The university today is a very unusual entity. It has no undergraduate students. It is a PhD granting only institution, and its primary function is to do very advanced medical research. To put all of this in context, Rockefeller University over the years, as you might see in your program, has had 28 winners of the Nobel Prize in medicine. If Rockefeller University were a country, it would rank number 4 in the world in Nobel Prizes won in the field of medicine, behind only the United States, the United Kingdom, and Germany. This is a truly extraordinary institution. The search process that we had to locate a new president in 2016 was somewhat unusual in that we hired a leading search firm to work with us, but their job was really a more passive job of dealing with candidates after the fact, not identifying candidates for us. To do that, we had several of our leading faculty members serving on the search committee, and we polled our entire faculty to ask them who they thought would be the best individual to lead the university going forward. Almost unanimously, the faculty said their number one candidate was Richard P. Lipton, who at the time was head of the genetics department at Yale. We immediately contacted Rick. We started a discussion with him. I think both of us rapidly concluded that this was a very good fit, and Rick became the 11th president of the university in the year 2016. In your program, you can see Rick's credentials, but he himself is a very accomplished scientist. His specialty was developing or understanding the genetic cause of hypertension, which is a disease that over 1 billion people have in the world, and trying to understand, okay, this is what causes hypertension. Now what do we do about it, and how do we fix it? He also was one of the original developers of a concept called exome sequencing, which is a simplified way of looking at the 3 billion pairs of information that are in one human genome and try to understand what do they mean, what should we do about the information we gather from that. Again, you can see in your book that Rick has been he's part of the several national organizations that are very well known in the field of science. He sits on the board of both Genentech and Roche, who are two of the leading pharmaceutical companies, and I think is a leading expert in the whole field of medical research. And particularly as it applies to the human condition of trying to understand when our body malfunctions, what is it that's gone wrong, and what can we do to fix it. I'm delighted that Rick is one of tonight's honorees. And Rick, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about medical science.
Here's your sitting. Right. Here, put your nail out. This is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ, for that kind introduction, and I want to thank the Foreign Policy Association for this wonderful recognition and honor. I suspect that there aren't too many scientists who have been so recognized, so I'll just start by telling you why one would pick to be a scientist. It's a very high-risk profession. The best scientists are people who take enormous risks, often fail, but sometimes succeed. And the reason people continue to do it is because the thrill of discovering something new about how the world works or how the universe works, and know that as long as people have been on the planet and as long as there's a universe, you have discovered something that is true and enduring, particularly in an environment where you have so much misinformation or conjecture. That kind of certainty is an incredibly powerful drug that once it's experienced is very hard to ignore and wanting to continue to replicate it as long as you can. So I am a physician scientist. I'm particularly interested in the opportunities to discover something that is not only true, but has impact on the human condition ultimately. So in his 1651 book, Leviathan, Thomas Hobbes wrote, "Life is nasty, brutish, and short." And in 1651, he was not wrong. Over the previous 200,000 years, human life expectancy had increased about 1 year every 10,000 years. And by 1900, life expectancy was 47 years. But the Industrial Revolution, engineering, and the understanding of fundamental life processes have since then added about 1 year of life expectancy every 4 years, with life expectancy now about 80 in the United States. Most frequent year of age of death is 86. Moreover, in 1900, 20% of children died before age 5, most often due to childhood infectious diseases. Today, only 0.6% of children die at that age. These improvements have largely been attributable to improved sanitation and nutrition, as well as development of safe and effective vaccines and antibiotics. Starting after World War II, consistent federal funding of basic research in universities, affiliated hospitals, and independent research institutions in the U.S. has, over the last 80 years, produced profound advances in the understanding of fundamental life processes and has identified causes of common and rare diseases that afflict humankind. Basic science at Rockefeller University identified DNA as the chemical of heredity, leading to an understanding of the genetic code. The development as well of recombinant DNA technology led to production of growth hormone, insulin, and other therapeutic peptides in bacteria that could be used for the benefit of mankind. Sequencing of the human genome then allowed the identification of the fundamental causes of a wide range of diseases, and we now understand thousands of rare diseases ranging from sickle cell anemia to cystic fibrosis and common diseases like neurodegeneration and hypertension, as well as thousands of other rare diseases. We've developed an extraordinarily robust ecosystem in the United States of basic knowledge that's developed in academia, which led to the development of the biotechnology industry to translate that knowledge into new therapeutics that have important impact on health. The reason this industry has developed in the United States is very clear. We have a remarkably robust ecosystem here that starts with fundamental science in universities funded by NIH and philanthropy and other foundations, that then is passed on to the biotech and pharmaceutical industries to turn these new insights into new medicines that will be of benefit to the human population. So by 1960, deaths from heart attacks, strokes, and cancers of different types were the major cause of death. The robust ecosystem that developed in the U.S. has resulted in dramatic advances that have reduced cardiovascular deaths by 70%, by lowering blood pressure and LDL cholesterol and reducing smoking, reduced cancer deaths by 30% in the last 30 years due to marked improvement in survival of breast cancer, lung cancer, lymphoma, melanoma, and many others. The recent discovery of GLP-1 and its derivatives has produced a safe and effective treatment for obesity and its comorbidities, including kidney failure, heart disease, and a dozen cancers. New drugs with dramatic impact on disease have been developed, and I won't go into all of them except to say the vaccines in COVID-19 were critical in getting us from the worst part of the pandemic. Drugs that cure hepatitis C, use of CRISPR technology to tackle sickle cell anemia. These are just a few of the many diseases that have been prevented, mitigated, or cured due to the robust ecosystem in our country. Aside from its impact on human health, NIH funding has been a major economic driver in the U.S., providing the substrate for basic science and targets for therapy required to sustain the biotechnology industry in the U.S. Economic analyses have repeatedly indicated that there's a positive return in investment on NIH funding that dwarfs that in most systems, about $2.50 for every dollar spent. The $1.6 trillion U.S. biomedical R&D ecosystem is unique in the world and contributes to U.S. GDP growth and is wholly dependent on robust support on the base for basic science that is the seed corn for the development further in biotech. Importantly, U.S. also plays a major role in global health with support from USAID for programs that include support for childhood vaccines, which are distributed around the world, preventive drugs, diagnostic tests, and treatment for HIV infection that has really literally saved tens of millions of lives via the PEPFAR program in Africa, South America, and Asia. Other programs do the same for drugs for tuberculosis and malaria. These efforts have been remarkably important for global health, and they also promote the health in our nation. Diseases that would otherwise come to the U.S. without adequate treatment and spread in the U.S. are now handled. More broadly, studying mosquito-borne diseases like malaria, dengue fever, chikungunya, and Zika abroad has prepared us for these diseases coming to the United States as global change drives mosquito-borne illnesses northward as a result of global warming. Last Friday at the Pierre Hotel, I had the privilege of presenting the annual Lasker Foundation Clinical Award to scientists who developed highly effective treatment for children with cystic fibrosis. This disease was described here in New York City in 1935, an inherited disease of children that resulted in death by age 5 due to malnutrition and pneumonia. The discovery of the gene mutations that caused this disease in 1989 led to understanding that the disease resulted from failure of cells in the lung and pancreas to handle chloride ions properly. Biochemists at Berkeley developed ingenious assays allowing screening in the year 2000 for chemicals that might physically reconstruct the mutated proteins that cause this disease. This ultimately led to the development of 3 drugs in biotech, approved in 2019, that in combination are miraculous. And today, children who start these drugs by age 2 are expected to approach a normal life expectancy, a profound effect for the hundreds of thousands of children worldwide with cystic fibrosis and their families. I think you can appreciate why people are so enamored of pursuing pursuits such as these. And in closing, I simply want to indicate what is at risk to us today. Public support for science, as I mentioned, is a positive good for humanity and for our country. And it's critical that we sustain these efforts as we go forward despite some of the headwinds that all of us in science are facing these days in these tumultuous times. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you tonight, and thank you so much for this meaningful award. I appreciate it greatly. Thanks, Rich.
That's it.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Liffen, for what are extremely timely and important remarks. Finally, I will invite Peter K. Scaturo, the Vice Chair of Star Mountain Capital, to introduce our fourth invitee, a longtime friend and acquaintance of mine, Liz Ann Saunders, Managing Director and Chief Investment Strategist of Charles Schwab and Company.
Good evening, everyone. It is a real pleasure to introduce another of tonight's honorees. Many of you know Liz Ann Saunders as the Chief Investment Strategist at Charles Schwab, where she has been one of the most trusted voices in the market for many years. You've probably seen her on CNBC, Bloomberg, etc., offering clarity when things seem very uncertain in the markets. With decades of experience, she is consistently ranked among the most influential strategists in the industry, and her perspective on sought-after policy members, institutions, and individual investors alike. Someone who not only understands the markets better than just about anyone, but also knows how to make sense of them for the rest of us. Some of you may remember Liz Ann when she first appeared on the Louis Rukeyser show back in the late 90s. During her very first interview with Lou, he asked her if her parents were what Lou termed investment folks, to which Liz Ann responded they were not. Lou then took her hand and said, "Then, when you come out on the set in 15 minutes, speak so that your folks understand what it is you're talking about." And in a world where economists seem to take both sides of a bet, and where prognostinators speak eloquently about how we are likely to be in a bull market, although it could be a bear market, it's nice to have a voice that can be relied on ever since that conversation. What really stands out to me about Liz Ann is not just her ability to break down the economy into something the general public can understand, it's the way she does it, with warmth, generosity, and a sense of perspective that reminds us that markets are ultimately about people. I've always admired how she blends sharp analysis with genuine accessibility. So it is my honor to present the FPA Medal for Corporate Social Responsibility to someone who is not only one of the sharpest minds in finance, but also one of the most gracious voices in it, Liz Ann Saunders.
Hey, sucker. Congratulations. Thank you.
I am so not used to having a piece of paper in front of me. I speak all the time, always extemporaneously. So this is new for me. But I'm going to start extemporaneously. First of all, thank you to the Foreign Policy Association. It's truly an honor, and Your Serene Highness, it's been a thrill to meet you tonight and all my fellow honorees. It's also an interesting small world little evening that I've had. Thank you, Henry, for being my table mate. And we discovered that he not only knows one of my brother-in-laws very well, he grew up in Nicaragua with my sister-in-law. So, and then another fun fact, I guess more than a small world, is that I am named after Princess Grace's sister. And her name was Liz Ann. And when my mom had me, the firstborn, she remembered hearing the name and thought that's a lovely name, and that's where my name came from. Now to my formal remarks. So again, this is such an honor, and thank you, Peter. I will see you, Mike McKee. I'll be at Bloomberg really early tomorrow morning, and this is really late. So guess what? This is short. So I also want to thank my colleagues, some of which are here at Charles Schwab, as well as so many peers and mentors I've had in my nearly 40 years doing this on Wall Street, not least being Chuck Schwab himself. And this honor not just reflects our work at Schwab for more than 50 years and my work, but the collective commitment of so many people who really believe in helping investors and communities thrive. I want to express very deep gratitude for the FPA for this honor and for its long history of promoting understanding about global issues that shape our world. Throughout my near 4 decades career, I've been devoted, hopefully, to providing investors with unbiased information to help guide them on their investing journeys. So this recognition from an organization devoted to informed citizenship carries really special meaning. At Schwab, as many probably know, our mission is to help investors build better financial tomorrows through the power of investing. From the very beginning, Schwab has worked to democratize investing. That is what Chuck is known for these past 5 decades. The company, we think, has leveled the playing field for investors by bringing the cost of investing down dramatically and increasing access so that people of all levels of wealth have the opportunity to participate in the markets, in the economy. But we haven't just leveled the playing field when it comes to costs and products. We've also broken down barriers when it comes to information. We provide investors of all stripes with the education, insights, and resources they need to invest with confidence. And while we've been at it for a while now, in many ways, I feel like this work has never been more important than it is at this moment. We are living in an extraordinary moment with many big open questions. As many honorees have mentioned, geopolitical conflicts, artificial intelligence, shifting demographics, an evolving trade environment, and so much more. The news flow is endless, and investors also now contend with a wealth of disinformation and misinformation. I spend my days deeply entrenched in this environment, working to make sense of it and listening to the questions and concerns of everyday investors. It is a real challenge for people to distinguish the signal from the noise, and that means it is all the more critical for people in my role and at firms like Schwab to continue the important work of delivering trustworthy, credible information and education to investors. It's also worth pointing out that much of the research and education we produce at Schwab is available to anyone, whether or not they are a client. In my years studying markets and investing, I've come to understand that finance is never just about numbers. It's about people. It's about parents saving for their children's education. It's about retirees striving for security. It's about communities that seek stability and hope. Empowering people to achieve financial well-being is our mission at Schwab. But we understand that can't happen in isolation from the communities we serve. We are committed to fostering strong communities and advancing financial literacy so that more people can prosper. In fact, through the Charles Schwab Foundation, we support financial literacy from childhood into adulthood. We've partnered with organizations like the Boys and Girls Club. I just became a national board trustee for the Boys and Girls Club of America. Also Donors Choose, Girl Scouts, 4-H, and the SIPMA Foundation. We provide free resources, workshops, and mentoring so that knowledge is not a privilege, but a public good. Schwab employees are active in their communities as volunteers, mentors, and champions of financial literacy, trained to teach financial education in classrooms and nonprofits, and supported with volunteer time off and ongoing engagement opportunities. I'm incredibly proud to be part of a company that recognizes the importance of showing up in local communities, not only as a financial institution, but as a neighbor that shares each community's hopes and values. So to the Foreign Policy Association, thank you for this extraordinary honor. I accept the FPA Medal and Award for Social Responsibility with gratitude and with the belief that our shared mission is to turn complexity into clarity, helping people to feel more confident in themselves and the world around them. Together we can foster a future where markets, communities, and people all have the chance to prosper. Thank you very much.
Bloomberg Surveillance, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. I will be there as well, so Liz Ann, if I fall asleep on the air, poke me, please. We'll We'll both be tired, but we're both very happy to be here tonight, I am sure. A couple of months ago, I was here speaking about the importance of the work that the Foreign Policy Association does, and I think we have all learned in the intervening time that it has become ever more important. And so we'd like to thank everybody for their support. I'd like to thank the Foreign Policy Association for inviting me to host this evening, and thank you all for coming. This concludes the formal portion of our evening. You're welcome to stay. If you haven't eaten your key lime pie, go ahead, have some coffee, and continue your conversations. But thank you all very much.
Thank you.